Hi, and welcome to the second episode of Sax Bites, the 5-minute saxophone lesson podcast. I'm Emma, and I am going to be doing the second episode in my Sax Basics series. So after talking about air in the last episode, I'm going to talk about embouchure today. Embouchure is often one of the most common questions I get when I start working with students, and particularly more advanced students that will often ask me, "Hey, Emma, can you just look at my embouchure and check if it's right?" Now, while there are some really common principles for embouchure that everyone needs to follow, I find it really interesting because the focus should be on creating the optimal shape for your face, for your physical structure, as opposed to copying or emulating the embouchure of another player. So when it comes to checking your own saxophone embouchure, you can look for the classics. Have you got a rounded O shape? Have you got really firm lips with the lips working nice and hard rather than the jaw clenching? And have you got your lips placed in the optimal position on the mouthpiece, so where the reed meets the mouthpiece, rather than putting in too much or too little mouthpiece into your mouth? So they're the basics, and if you're listening to this podcast, you will undoubtedly know those. But where does the embouchure advice kind of go to the next level? And that's where I like to talk about how your lips are actually working around the mouthpiece. The corners of your mouth have such power in improving and controlling your tone. So yes, while students know they have to have a rounded shape, they don't often engage the muscles in the corner of their mouth, really pushing them in. And what that does is when your corners are pushed in and activated to create your round shape, you'll actually reduce some of the top down and bottom up pressure coming from your jaw. It's one of the quickest ways to help alleviate biting and clamping of the jaw. Work harder on the corners. So you can test if your corners and that rounded shape is actually working for you in two ways. And these are two tricks that I want you to try as soon as you finish listening to this podcast. The first is to try playing a long, steady tone on one note and lift your teeth off the top of the mouthpiece. If your lips are in a firm, supported, rounded shape, you should be able to lift your top teeth off the top of the mouthpiece where they're just resting gently and be able to have your lips stay locked in place in their firm position to keep the tone going. And you should almost feel like they're separate processes. What your jaw's doing and what your lips are doing when you're trying this exercise are almost very different. Your lips are in stabilization mode and you're just experimenting with lifting those top teeth up. The second thing that I want you to try to check if your embouchure is working for you and those corners are pushed in enough is while you're playing a note, or I should say you can do these on scales and moving notes, but it's a little bit easier just to do it on one steady tone, is to actually try pushing the saxophone away from your body or getting a friend to sort of pull your saxophone away from you. And I want you to feel where the pressure is as the saxophone's being pulled away. If you feel like your jaw is the thing holding onto the saxophone and holding it in place, so you're maintaining a sound as it's getting pulled away, your jaw is doing way too much work and your lip shape and lip control needs a little bit more development. But if, as you're pushing the saxophone away from your body, you feel that you are essentially holding the saxophone by the lips, then you definitely have a nice, hard-working, rounded shape and your lips are working nice and hard. So have a little experiment with those. If you're curious, send me a message and I might even post a demo of these exercises on my YouTube channel if that's something you would be interested in. So any work that you're doing on your embouchure exercises or paying attention to that part of your musical practice, I want you to just remember that you can't push it too hard. Good embouchure development happens over time. It happens as you reinforce good habits. You check in with your embouchure maybe as part of your warm-up routine every session, and you're thinking about muscle development over time. You're not trying to rush anything. You're trying to make sure you're really instilling these good habits into your playing every single day. Alrighty guys, that's been episode 2 of Sax Bites. I really love talking embouchure with you today, and I'm going to be unpacking embouchure development a little bit deeper in future episodes. This was just our starting point and just gave you a couple of exercises to really look at the way you make your embouchure and the way you can test out your embouchure development at home. I'll be back next time with another episode, but until then, happy practicing!